Hey, in today's video, we're going to be talking about how to make a perfect takeaway by breaking the takeaway into its component parts. When you can understand each of the movements and how to put them together, it's going to be so much easier to get your swing off to a flying start. Stay tuned. Hey, this is Steve with HitItLonger.com. If you get value out of this video, I hope you like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who also might get some help out of it. All right, so let's talk about the takeaway. You know, if you've watched my channel for some time, you know I'm not an enormous fan of a perfect takeaway, but it is a good way to get your swing off to a good start to where you're not what we might call playing from behind. So I like to think of the takeaway not having to be necessarily dead on, as the Hall of Fame is simply littered with golfers who took the club up and away, low and in, and everything else in between. So make sure that your takeaway simply falls within a reasonable corridor, that you don't have to do a lot of catching up throughout the swing to get it back to the ball successfully, efficiently. But let's explore at least how to make a perfect takeaway by breaking it down into its parts. So the first move that you're going to be doing, and we're going to say that the takeaway goes, let's say, to 4 hours back. So let's say here we're at 3 hours back at first parallel. Let's say we're going to get it to here, because that starts to bring everything I'm going to talk about in this video into play. The first motion we're going to be talking about is the extension of the right wrist, or the trail wrist if you're left-handed. We call it the trail wrist. And can you see what that does all by itself? It would tend to draw the club back on the arc, square to the arc. So we definitely like that move. Plus, it winds the wrist up so we can get lots of power. So definitely, we're going to have this move in there. Now, in order for this to move this way, your left forearm, assisted by the upper bone, is going to turn this way 90 degrees. So together, those two moves, isolated, will look like this. Just like this. Okay, so again, I'm taking the club back square to the arc here, and on the arc. But of course, there's no blending here of all the other things that we would like to get going. So we want to do a couple more things here. Now we'd like to blend this together with some bigger muscles of the trunk and the legs and the hips. So as we're slowly doing this move here, we're going to be working in some big muscles like this. So if I were just to isolate, and I'm going to rock the left shoulder down and around this way, and I'm going to do it with the assistance of my legs. Watch from this angle how my hips are not going to be still. So I'm not just doing this all by itself. I'm blending it together with the rest of the body. My goal is to make this shoulder come under and advance the arm this way. So I haven't drawn the arm back yet by itself. Instead, I'm just going to start to rock the whole body to get the club back about an hour, just like that. And so it wasn't just the shoulder all by itself winding. It's an act of about all the big muscles of the trunk and legs too. Watch the knee start to kick into the inside. My right knee will start to straighten. So it's a whole body effort to get the left shoulder rocking down and around. We'd like to avoid this, where the shoulder just goes around this way. But instead, we're looking for a little bit of tilt to that too. So down and around like this. And that's what we'd like to add in next. Now, the last thing is not in itself a motion, but instead a checkpoint. A good checkpoint, what's really important about the takeaway is that you get the hand path, this corridor. This has got to stay in the right corridor. So, of course, we wouldn't like this takeaway because he took the handle and moved it way off its track. And we certainly wouldn't want this one either, because I'm moving the handle way inside the track. So some people are going to cock the club late, and those people would like this early. So the club would tend to stay on the outside of the hands. And all I'm doing here is I am delaying the extension of the right wrist. And of course the turning 90 degrees of the left forearm. I'm just delaying that. So there's not really any difference once you reach the top of the swing. Everything will be blended together. But the fourth thing is just a checkpoint. So I'll be checking here for a fist and a thumb. Now after I've done my rock motion here, again, I'm checking for a fist and a thumb. So I'm trying to take this handle back on a very subtle arc to the inside without jarring it inside or taking it away, just for the sake of keeping the hands in front of me. Okay, so just like this, there's the rock, shoulder going down and around, just like that. And then I do my measurement and I see my handle is going back the same distance from my right thigh. Then I can start going into my wrist and forearm motion here. And once you get about here, you're in pretty good shape right about here for the rest of the swing to come down into the back of the ball. So those are the three basic components of the takeaway. And then your one checkpoint to make sure that that hand path is staying reasonably neutral. You don't have to get this precise. Your ball striking is not going to be precise like you see. You might think by watching some other channels or watching some guys on TV, they're really practicing, whoa, and they're checking it again. That's not going to be your end if you're a poor golfer. Sure, you don't want anything wacky. Don't want anything wacky. You got to keep it within a reasonable corridor. But once you're in the corridor, I want you to start really focusing on impact zone mechanics, because that's where everybody in the Hall of Fame shares in common, is they're all really, really good through the impact zone. That's why they're hitting it so long and straight. So I hope breaking it down like this assists some of you and demystifies it to some sense. Got these two wrist and forearm actions. We've got a forearm, we've got a shoulder winding under, and we've got a checkpoint right here. Once you can nail those things, I think you're going to get your swing off to a great start. Good enough to make it into the Hall of Fame someday. All right, let's see. Hit one and see if I can make this takeaway I'm prescribing by feeling all these individual parts here. Looking back at that in slow motion, you can see, yeah, I'm not dead on. Not dead on this perfect takeaway, but I am probably within the corridor that I'm describing. I'm slinking down the side of the corridor. I do tend to bring the club in a little early by cocking the wrist a little bit early, turning the forearm a little bit early. And I tend to also bring more body into it than most people do. So it gives the club the appearance that it's going a little more to the inside. A lot of people in the Hall of Fame did that. So I figure that's good enough. From then I work on impact conditions. So hey, I hope breaking it down into its individual components that this will demystify the takeaway for you, allow you to get back in that reasonable corridor with your takeaway and get your swing off to a good start. Then concentrate on impact zone, and I think you're going to go a long way in this game. Hey, for more video tips and articles, head over to my website, hititlonger.com. I'm Steve. Thanks so much for watching. As usual, I'll either see you in the next video or I'll see you longer and straighter down the fairway. Everybody take good care.